Pauline Adrian, a connected parenting coach and educator. Um, so I would just want to talk today with you about how to support your child when you are doing your best to attune to your child's emotions and you're not sure that your co-parent is using the same approach, or maybe you know for sure that your co-parent isn't using the same approach. And I just want to let you know up front that this is really common. It's, of course, even more common, I think, if you're separated from your child's other parent, but it often also really happens a lot in relationships that are still together, in marriages and partnerships and relationships that are where the parents are still together and they still have a bit of a different parenting approach based on how they were parented and all of the different beliefs that come along with that. So, okay, so let's get down to what to do differently. So you want to attune and connect with your child, and you notice that your co-parent is less inclined to pay attention to your child's emotions, or maybe it seems like they're often not paying attention to the emotions at all. The first thing I want to say is that it rarely helps to point out in kind of a teaching sort of way what they're doing or what they're not doing. Usually that doesn't land very well. And again, often that doesn't land well, even if you're still in a really good relationship with that person. And here's what's often going on underneath things. Not only do people have their own beliefs based on how they were raised and their own past childhood wounds, but people need to actually be able to feel their own feelings and need in order to feel their child, in order to attune to their children. And they also need to have experienced on some level having some of their emotional needs met in order to be able to provide that for their children, because we learn that kind of thing through our experience of having experienced it ourselves. We don't, it's a hard thing to learn like from a book or from reading online and so on, or even from watching videos. So telling people, what they're doing wrong or what they need to do differently rarely works. And often they feel as if they need to defend themselves. And truthfully, they may actually be doing their very, very best, and they may not be able to do any better. And so no amount of information is really going to change that. However, the more hopeful news is that if you have a relationship with your child in which you're able to attune to their emotions and their needs, they will begin to recognize that, because it feels really good to have someone attuned to you. It feels really good to be able to tell somebody something that, that you're having an emotion about, and have them, say, I get it, and be able to see by the look on their face and their response that they really understand you. That is really healing, and it's what our kids really need. So what it does, if you're able to provide that for them, is it gives them an experience of feeling understood, and it gives them an experience of being felt, right? And so even if they aren't getting it from the other parent, or if they're not getting it at school from their teacher or their grandparents or maybe a babysitter, if they're getting it from one person who has some influence in their life, that has a huge impact, right? And most people that I talk with, when I ask them this question, can you remember a relationship when you were growing up or in your childhood where you loved to be with that person? You absolutely, loved being with them. And usually it was because you knew that you were fully accepted and they didn't judge you and they understood you. It might have been a grandma, it might have been a parent or a grandpa or a teacher. But when people have those relationships, it has a huge impact, and people remember that. So don't underestimate what you can do on your own without having to try to change the other parent or the other adults in your child's life. And of course, if you have a good enough relationship with them and you can ask them, gee, can you do this? Then great. But if you don't, I would say let go of that and just focus on what you can do in your relationship with your child. And lastly, it helps to find an outlet or a healthy way of expressing and processing any frustration that you might have with that other person. So if it's a co-parent and you don't have a good enough relationship with them that you're going to be able to influence their behavior, at least if you can stay more emotionally on an even keel yourself and stay grounded when issues crop up with your child, which they will, that will really help your child a lot if you can stay on an emotional sort of a level plane when those kinds of issues crop up. If it's with a teacher, of course, obviously it might be appropriate to go and speak on your child's behalf to the teacher. But if it's a co-parent who isn't going to be influenced by what you say, again, the best thing that you can do is figure out how to manage your own emotions and maybe even get a little bit of help or therapy if needed to be able to process whatever emotions are coming up so that you can stay regulated with your child and support them. So I hope that's helpful. If you have questions, just pop them in down below. Thanks very much for listening.